You know I like the Cannonball Run. I may have mentioned that a few times here. This is a documentary about the race called the U.S. Express, which was an actual cross-country road race that took place after the Cannonball races folded up, early 80s. So in the last one of these races in 83, somebody set the record from New York City to Redondo Beach, California in 32 hours and 7 minutes. So this filmmaker decided to make a documentary about those guys and the person who did that. And in this making of this documentary, there were a lot of guys who were saying, yeah, there's no way they could have done that without cheating. So this filmmaker decides to get somebody who's running current cannonball races in Europe and says, let's see if we can do it with modern technology. So you have here both a documentary about the U.S. Express and an attempt to beat the coast-to-coast land speed record. Excuse me, I get choked up because I'm emotional about these things. So here is the documentary entitled 32 Hours, 7 Minutes.
As the lowest priced model of the 10 best-selling economy cars. Terrific, right?
Hey, you westbounders up there got a sports car coming doing about 95 miles an hour.
We were able to cross the country in as many hours as our pioneer forefathers had taken in weeks.
To go from New York to California in 32 hours, it's unbelievable.
Probably people saying you were doing at least 150.
We knew what we were doing was not going to be socially acceptable.
It was an opportunity, and we had to go for it.
That guy's got his terrible
Oh, he's turning around. Thank God.
I had no respect for the 55-mile-an-hour limit, and I took great delight in breaking the limit, I can assure you.
Go!
Now I look at it as probably the stupidest thing I ever did in my whole life.
Everyone is taking insurance policies out on us, and if we make it on Monday, they're going to cancel the checks because they took them out on Friday.
This was a vehicle that had 2 speeds, 200 miles per hour, and stopped.
We tried to disappear, and that's what we did.
We had front and rear radar, 2 scanners.
We put a switch on the dashboard to disable the brake lights.
I had self-designed radar jammers.
Fuel cells, 50, 60 gallons, an extra tank here.
Which was basically like sitting in a time bomb.
The risk-reward ratio was becoming unbalanced.
This is a real story. It wasn't Burt Reynolds and a bunch of millionaires.
We didn't stop for anything. We filled that tank, we were gone.
It's not something the FBI tracked.
You're in a race. You don't care what happens.
You can't look at the fact that you're doing the football field every second and a half.
We weren't race car drivers.
We just drove as fast as we could from New York to L.A.
They were driving so fast they just went right out of sync.
Light travels faster than sound.
So if I may,
please.
This is a film I've been following online for a long time. This has been another years in the making.
Not Cannonball, this film.
This film.
Right, this
I had heard about it, something related to Cannonball discussion, that somebody's making this documentary. Initially, I thought just about the U.S. Express. So
right.
There was a website and there were clips, and people who actually were involved in these races were posting on the comment section on the website, so it was really cool. And I just kept waiting for it to come out, and I'm like, maybe I can tell the Putnam and they can get it. And then finally I got an email, I was on the mailing list, that this thing was out, so I bought it. So currently the only way you can get this is through the 32hours7minutes.com website. So I was surprised to find that this wasn't just about the U.S. Express. This is actually, that's the story of that race leads to this person, as I said earlier, trying to see if they can beat the record. So,
well, and because, just to jump in, but,
yeah.
Because, well, I know Cannonball, that's about it. But my understanding, and having watched this just for the viewers, is that they try to beat the record because the people who set the 32 hours, 7 minutes one, everybody's saying they cheated.
There's no way they could do it.
Right.
And you find out as the film goes along what they did to be able to do that. They really did it, but how did they do it? And because the person who, well, we won't get into that. I was going to say, because the person who, you find out that the person who was the sort of the impetus for doing this documentary died before the documentary was finished. They basically say, with modern technology and a modern car, what can we do it?
Right.
Can you do it and not get arrested? So what I loved the original U.S. Express information because it was fascinating and great stories of lawless, high-speed, high-octane, good old boy action on the highways. For somebody who grew up with Smokey and Cannonball, that's pretty hot stuff. And you see a lot of original footage that was shot, high-quality original footage, shot by the drivers and by like a professional video crew, and like news reports. And I'm like, you're doing something illegal, and you're okay with this being on the news? This was like shocking to me that the news would even report that.
Right.
It's like, oh, they're at it again. But then it goes into this, sorry, I'm blabbing.
No, we're good.
Then it goes into this story of, okay, we're going to beat the thing. And I'm like, okay, because I generally don't like documentaries where it becomes more about the documentarian than the subject. But once things get going, as a person who loves this sort of thing, this puts you inside the car.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you are inside the car. And I'm watching this and I'm realizing I'm like on the edge of my seat and I'm like, there's no music here. This is just the sounds of what's going on and I'm fascinated. And then they get, they get near the law or maybe a car problem and I realize I'm not breathing because I'm like, are they going to get nabbed? Is it going to end it? So well shot. So many documentaries are done with cheap, small handheld video cameras, and they're shaky and they look like crap. This was really well done. It was a lot of little mini cameras mounted around the car so that you can cut back and forth.
She said.
And she had a handheld camera in the back so she could go from person to person, and the filmmaker was in the back seat. And I was just riveted. I loved this movie. I can't wait to watch it again. I've got several people I'm lending this to so they can see it. I really hope this gets another video release with extras if it finds a distributor and gets into video stores, because I want to see more of that original footage. I love commentaries on documentaries where you can hear what was going on while you're seeing the footage that was shot. So personally, as a fan of 70s good old boy movies and that whole thing, I can't speak highly enough of this movie.
Excuse me.
You're getting choked up.
I'm choking up as well. I basically know the Cannonball Run, the Burt Reynolds movie, and I knew you'd handed me this, and I too was expecting kind of a documentary on the Cannonball Run, which then my understanding was merged into and became the U.S. Express. That's really only about a third to half of this. I found the first half of this really just discombobulated, and it didn't, for me as a film, it didn't know where the focus was. We eventually then get into the documentarian, the filmmaker, deciding she gets to go along and she's going to watch this guy who has to make this run out of some odd belief that he has to prove something to his dead father. I will unquestionably say that it sucked me into it, and I was intrigued. And you talk about being along there for the ride and seeing some amazing footage. I agree completely. But I continually would then step back and find these people reprehensible, that they're not only risking their lives, literally driving 160 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour in rain conditions. So they're not only risking their lives, and part of me, and this is putting on my high hat about, or my big important hat about filmmaking and responsibility, but they're not only risking their lives, they're risking your life and my life, barreling along at 160, 170 miles an hour. And I was really hoping, I kept thinking, boy, they actually, and this is a great thing for filmmakers who, they actually answer the question, why weren't you arrested for distributing this? And apparently there's only a year-long statute of limitations. I thought there was a 7-year for everything, because I kept finding myself saying, this is real interesting that you're doing this. I hope you go to jail for 20 years. And because I really disliked these characters and I thought it was irresponsible. So I'm torn between finding this a very riveting, once it really got going, interesting, intriguing documentary on how these folks did this. And, I'm sitting there hoping, part of me, boy, I hope you make it, and then I hope you get hauled away to jail for 20 years. Because I was really torn by this. So I think, effectively, films are about emotion and about telling stories and stuff like that. I have to think I'd say it was effective.
Oh, good. Well, cool.
And I hate to say that, I have to say that I probably enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it reminded, strangely enough, and my God, I apologized for anybody affiliated with any of this stuff, but I found myself thinking, because I happened to be reading a book about the Columbine massacres, and I found myself thinking in equating these people with Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris and the videos that they made. And because I find them to be just as equally irresponsible. Not to that extent, but you understand that they're barreling along one little whoops thing and they're laughing, they go by the cops and, oh, we pulled one over on the cops. I'm saying, yeah, those guys are just out there trying to make my life safe from people like you. So I guess to get me all riled up like that, it's an effective film. It was fun.
That's the most divided we've been, I think, on anything.
I think probably maybe so.
Well, cool. Thank you, movie, for doing that.
Yeah, I guess so.